Hey, we are live. I'm here with Mark's Moon Home Video from his home video rental store. As you can see, he's got some classics behind him.
I don't even know what's
the Halloweens. And a massive Power Rangers comic book collection as well.
Is that about? You've got better eyesight than me.
Well, you don't notice that behind you?
I didn't. I noticed there was something in there. I thought they were like video brochures or something. Because just to spoil the illusion for everyone watching at home, that is a virtual backdrop. It's not real. I'm sorry.
We thought you were actually coming live from a rental store with a neon open sign.
Me and Malcolm were laughing that before we were setting this up, we were typing in video rental stores, and Google added the phrase "near me," and I was really tempted to just hit that to see if anything came up whatsoever, because I'm in like London, and trust me, there are no video rental stores near me.
You'd never know. There might have been one hidden within a secret market, because sometimes that is the case.
Like
I think I read that there was 4 rental stores left in the UK.
Yes, so there was more in America, wasn't there? Because there's been a lot of documentaries.
There's a lot more. I went to one called Viking Video when I was in Seattle, and that was basically a strange one, because I went in there and the guy said, "Oh, you know what? They have a whole load of erotic stuff in here." Hello, Alex. They have a lot of erotic, and they don't mind the media over
Alex was in there with you in the erotic video store.
They don't mind the.
No, it's not me. I'm not interested in the erotic video. Actually, I don't know who Alex is.
I don't mind they don't mind the erotic side in the UK, but the violence is bad. But over here, the eroticness is bad, and the violence is okay.
Yeah, it's so strange. Going back,
not watch the erotic thrillers of the 90s.
But before I go to our tangent, I remember watching, for those of you who have seen like a early 90s film, I know Malcolm's seen it, called Ricochet, and it was so odd how that film was treated.
Denzel Washington movie.
Exactly. It's very violent. It's surprisingly violent for a Denzel Washington movie. But yeah, the biggest censorship issues that I had in America were to do with a few scenes involving sexual scenes, but the scene of John Lithgow like blowing people's heads off and whatnot was absolutely fine. So
like those old Playboy DVDs.
Exactly. Yeah. But yeah, how are you, Malcolm? You always ask how I am. I never ask how you are.
I'm okay. I've not been sleeping well, and so if people look at me and I look dishevelled and miserable, and my eyes look black, that's why. And because I've got to do this video with him, so I'm a little bit.
After 2 days, we did a video with Phil Abigail only 3 days ago.
He's getting the spirit, guys. He's getting into the YouTube spirit. But yeah, I've been a little bit dishevelled because I've been sleeping. I mean, like waking up every hour and just, it's been horrendous. Like, I get up, I sit there, I'm like, oh, and then I get up again, go to sleep, So hopefully that snaps out. But yeah, I miss Zavvi because Virgin Megastore was there first, and then Zavvi took over, didn't they?
Right.
And then they kind of just left and became
online. When I was a kid, I mean, without leaping straight into it, part of going to London was you would raid like the large department stores, which back then were HMV and Tower Records, and it would be for music.
Especially those big HMVs.
Oh, exactly. And that's all gone now. You can't really do that. A lot of people talk about FOP in London, which we'll get into later. But it's definitely really, really changed.
Well, I'll say this. Since I've been back, I've gone to a few different HMVs. With Donna, with Alex, and they've all got really bad. Like the one in Basingstoke had lovely selection. It cut down to 3 aisles. The one in Reading is probably the best because it's like really big, on the movie sections thing. And then when you go to Southampton, it's like a small section. And what's even weirder is the 4K section. It's all blank cases with just writing on it for you to go and get the movie.
I've been to the Southampton one, yeah. I mean, one of the things you and I talked about, it definitely ties in with the whole greater. I mean, we'll get into that later.
Because I moved, didn't I?
I know. We'll talk about that later, but this is definitely wanted to cover FOP, so it's interesting that Alex opened with Zavvi. But yeah, do you want to do an overview of what we are talking about today before I go off on my weird tangents?
We're going to talk about a lot of different things within the physical media realm. Hey, Raf, good to see you again.
Hey, Raf, welcome back.
So, so here we go. So basically, we're going to talk about all different things. We're going to talk about basically how we feel about media from the past, the present, and the future. We're not going to go too deep into the past and present future. We're going to give our thoughts on it, and hopefully there'll be a discussion from you guys as well. And I also think we're going to talk about other factors along the way. It's not going to be negative, like we don't believe physical media is dying in any way, but we do believe it's changing. We also believe, physical media is forever in its own way. So, obviously it might not be forever, but forever it'll always be in our hearts. This is a song we're working on together to sing for the next video.
Which everybody who was going to watch the next video, we really hope.
Yeah, we're practicing a song about physical media, and we're going to see it next week. But no,
Maybe that's what's missing from the world. We need more songs. Ed Sheeran, where was your song about compact discs? You haven't written any about compact discs. What's the problem?
What we need is we get that chat GP and do like a song where it makes it and then just sing it live.
Exactly. And the other thing I think we should add is we're talking about for this purposes of this conversation. I'm assuming.
What's the excellent news, Raf?
We're not going to talk so much about music in this one, are we, Matt? We're going to keep it.
No, we're not talking about music in this one because I feel like music in its own, could be its own chat anyway, and would be a really great one to break down maybe into kind of decades and the change and that, if we can get round to that. So, so let's start off with our past. Signal One Internet DVD and Blu-ray company stopped to release Blu-ray discs since November 2003. Some physical media collectors complained. Well, we'll get into that in a bit, I'm sure, because we've got a few things to say about media companies as well. And I think that connects with FOP and HMV and that as well. So we'll get into that. But thanks for bringing that up, Matt.
I was just going to say we welcome Americans as well, because obviously we're both based. Malcolm spent a lot of time in America, but now we're both based in the UK. And Malcolm actively buys from America, me less so, for reasons I'll get into as well. But yeah, we definitely mainly talk about I think the English experience is quite a metaphor for the worldwide experience anyway. So
it is.
But yeah,
it's very different. What I was going to say was, let's start off with our views from the past of physical media. I've experienced, like, for instance, I know, like, you had Laserdisc, you had a massive VHS collection. And let's start with that, basically, because was VHS your first format?
It was. I want to go a little bit before that as well, because the link here is Gino, who occasionally comes along on the channel.
Sunset Cuddy.
Exactly, and he's a friend of the Oddity Archive. And one of the things that the Oddity Archive opened me up to, YouTube channel, is that it seems back in the early days of the 50s and the 60s, when people were trying to set up pay-per-view via televisions, it does go that far back, that there was a big fear from the studio about putting this stuff in the home. Yes. And that went right through to formats that are completely unknown to the likes of you and I, like Cartravision and all these experimental home video formats. Before home video came along, and by the time home video came along, the studios were very kind of like, we don't like this, we don't want to support it, we think it's a really bad idea of putting a recording of any film or TV show or anything, no matter how small or big, on something in someone's home, and we want to be really controlling of that. And you can, I don't want to go into the ins and outs of that because it's a very long video, but you can read about that. You can read about how when video recorders had the ability to record, that there was this whole knee-jerk reaction, not only to do with piracy, but copying stuff off the television, which is interesting. So this is where home media started. Home media started with this belief point of We don't want to put stuff in a home. We're fearful of it. We want to keep control and we want to keep protection on it. We want to make sure that all the early formats basically have limited use, which in America they certainly did. Videotapes, early videotapes would only play a certain amount of times. There was a thing called stop copy that wasn't very effective.
Yeah.
And the idea was that you should make tapes, not very good to start with. And I'm going way back before the likes of people in this chat started collecting.
You're talking about before people like Alex were even born.
Exactly, because they were so paranoid about this idea of that people could watch Airplane in their home. It's like, no, that should be a theatre or television thing. Because when it goes out on television, we control the time it's put out, we control everything. Everything was about control. And then, of course, as the 80s moved on, things like copy protection was developed for videotapes, but everyone got more and more open to the idea of, no, this is the new normal. And what happened is, to where we were at prior to the streaming era, is it was absolutely the way outside of cinema to view a film was either through streaming television, which was like premium HBO or Sky Television, and the main thing, of course, was home media, which could have been videotapes.
Yeah, I still remember the box office channels
exactly,
when I was a kid on the cable box.
Yeah, I recorded stuff off of those myself, and so we had this belief that this was what it was when it started, and then as it moved on, everyone opened up the floodgates. And now, which is why I wanted to bring this up, we've got to a place where the studios are in control again. They're basically putting stuff via streaming platforms with digital rights management, and they're controlling the versions. I mean, it's interesting. There was a kids' film. What was that kids' film with the talking dogs? Was it Show Dogs or something? It had like a sequence in it that was objectionable. So they made sure that they cut it on all future versions, and because those versions weren't hard media anymore, that didn't have a hard media release at that point, they could do that. So the studios have got the control they always wanted.
When you think about it, not to cut in here, but just to say this, is basically we got what we wanted, but because the way times have changed now, they've taken it back and they're hurting us as a consumer because, as you said, they can edit stuff out. And this is why digital is such a bad thing now, because if something happens and it's controversial, like what happened with Spider-Man when the Twin Towers thing happened, they had to cut the poster and cut the scene out of the movie because it was classified, even though it had nothing to do with it.
And it's interesting because of that. I mean, the thing is with streaming, as we know from the illegal underground anyways, that streaming is also called and distributed as physical files, if not on hard media. But generally, it's going to become a lot less easy, because what would have happened with something like the age Spider-Man happened, hard media was physical media, I should say, was still working. So there's examples, there's cinema trailers and things and internet trailers that include sequences from that film that will be all removed from all future versions. But in a digital age, that's getting harder and harder. And it also means, as we've seen with the obvious example, the Star Wars trilogy, that it's getting more controlled with how those films are distributed and viewed and what versions there are. But the only reason why I wanted to start with that is because it's really weird that we don't, because we've all grown up with media always being there. And the kids today will know it as they'll learn the online way rather than the physical way. It's really weird that the studios back then had that knee-jerk reaction, and now all the people working in the studios who are completely, the people who would have had that reaction would have died out, but the studios still are in that mindset, even with the new generation. No, we want complete control over this, over our intellectual property, they call it, and they've got it. If they want to restrict or remove something because it's not physical anymore, that's very easy to do. So in many ways, it's gone back to what they always wanted, even though for 30, 40 years, that wasn't the case. It wasn't how they could start, because those films could have, outside of television, it could only be viewed that way. So interesting.
Which is sad, really, because I think if people were able to keep films in the cinema, there probably wouldn't be so much of a case of dwindling cinema goers, because it shows you how different the time is. When people like Donna were younger, when they went to the cinema, it was an actual full-on entertainment thing where you went, you saw a newsreel, you saw a comedy short, you saw an animated short. Sometimes you'd see like a Looney Tunes or something else, like Woody Woodpecker, whatever. And then you'd see the movie, and you might see a B movie before that movie.
And media collectors will know as well, if you saw something like Oliver or something, you would see that with entr'actes and overtures. It was more like going to see a play than going to see a cinema, because the way the film was presented was very theatrical. Yeah.
All right, let's get some of these comments up so we don't miss out on them quickly. I find the medium rent Blu-ray DVDs 999 coming of age crime comedy named Go 999 got a UK Blu-ray release in November 2023. That's a good movie. I enjoy that movie.
It's a great movie. I'm lucky enough that I do own that, and I owned it via the original Blu-ray release. It's probably quite a dated transfer now, but yeah, I mean,
I remember having that.
That's another film that because I don't want to get into the modern viewpoint of those films, but yeah, you do wonder if. I mean, it's definitely the case with Disney Plus that I've noticed a few films aren't available on there. The most weirdest one, I think, is the John Candy romantic comedy Only the Lonely. And when I rewatched it independent of Disney Plus, because I was lucky enough to have a physical copy of it, I realised that there was a sequence at the end that didn't play well after 9/11. With all I would say, it was a joke about John Candy's mother foiling hijackers. And the minute I saw that scene, because you spend like an hour and a half watching a film, and why is this not on Disney Plus? And you get that last 5 minutes, go, this one sequence here is why, which is a very long-winded way of saying that is probably where we're at now in terms of films like Go and whatnot becoming available.
But see, I don't get with Disney why they haven't got films on there like Southbound to Heaven, which is one of their own films. I don't get why that isn't on there, because it should be.
One of the things that Disney Plus said was that they wanted to that when they launched, they threw everything at the wall based on their Fox library and their Disney library.
So they threw it at the wall to see if it would break.
Exactly, and they lost money on it because they realised that all these actors who are in this film need to be paid money, and so that's why that was one of their reasons for restricting. I'm a bit suspicious of that. Me and my partner rewatched the original Stakeout, which is still a great movie, but there's a lot of problematic stuff in there with non-consensual spying and like the characters in that film objectify this woman by spying on her and whatnot. And I don't want to. I'm not putting on my moral hacks. I think this of its time, and I still love that movie. But you could see modern Disney would be worrying, about putting something like that on their streaming platform.
All right, what's this? Another film that should get a big release from Man Brand, The Way of Gun 2000, and Crimson Rivers trilogy. This is a trilogy of French neo-noir thriller films. Yes, they should. Way of the Gun, I remember watching, and I really couldn't get into it, but the Crimson River trilogy, definitely.
I saw Crimson Rivers. Yeah. But,
Marx and Malcolm, do you hear about the Play in Town website? It's an excellent physical media archive website that operates in all entire UK. Yeah, I've seen it. But for some reason, it doesn't seem the deals I want on it for the most part.
Yeah, I mean, I use Blu-rays for everyone, which I recommend for people outside of America. They tend to be this company that basically scoop everything up from around the world, all those store exclusives and whatnot. And hey, George. And and basically they're very good. There are price hikes in there, as you'd expect. So hey, Darth, welcome back. But I mean, now we're talking about. You're right, actually. So to bring it back to Malcolm's question, that I've waffled all over something about the history of home video. That's exactly what I did when I first started as a kid collecting videos. There wasn't what we call in the UK a sell-through market, which is like a home video version of those things. So he's gone. He's disappeared.
I'm just saying you're talking about it because I've got to close the windows because it keeps blowing the door.
I say he's going to throw himself out the window.
I just want people seeing me with the wind blowing me.
There we go. And so I would basically, I've got quite a nice VHS collection, even though I don't need it anymore. Because what I used to do a deal with a video store that I would say, look, when that film's 4 weeks old, can I buy it off you for £25? And then they would get more copies of that film because they know that if they and that was anything from Gremlins to Bigfoot and the Hendersons, or Harry and the Hendersons, it's called in America. They'd buy extra copies of it. I mean, I was 13-year-old at the time; tastes were very different. So yeah, and so a lot of the videos I own are actually like pristine rental copies because I only had 4 weeks rather than 4 years. But yeah, that's how I started collecting, and then I moved on. I was a cinema goer from a very young age, and it became a quest for me to try and find something that would replicate the cinema experience. So I went through Laserdisc and DVD, and in the end, it was only when I got to Blu-ray I found something that could accurately, represent it. And that's not to crap all over VHS. I have a lot of love for it because I have a lot of VHS memories. I mean, Malcolm, to bring it back to you, I know recently we've lost family, and some of your beloved Hong Kong VHSs are, in a story somewhere waiting for you to claim them. Because there's a lot of personality in that here because they're what you grew up with.
Well, the problem with VHS nowadays is there's probably billions of films that have never been released on any other format. That's why when shots when I see shot on video movies getting released and they're released on Blu-ray when, in my view, there's no reason for them to be on Blu-ray. Because they could just release them on a DVD, make it cheaper, sell it. But anyway, and they get bad mold, when they're in bad situation areas. Yeah. So, but you know what? I remember my first experience with VHS was with my mum because I grew up. My mum was a massive movie fan. Preferably, funny enough, martial arts and horror movies and murder mysteries like Miss Marple and all that.
Mysteries, I remember that about your mum. She adored them.
Yeah, she loved all that. So she'd have them all on VHS, like the Inspector Morse or you name it, all that earlier stuff. And then you'd see a copy of like Prom Night, My Blade Valentine. Then you'd see something like a Jackie Chan movie like Dragons Forever. And it was an incredible time because we'd go out together when I was a little boy. We'd go to places like Cash Converse. We'd go to the market. And on the market at the time, it was like 2 for £8. And I remember us picking up things like Scream 2 or WrestleMania or a martial arts movie. And then if we really wanted something that was in Woolworths, when Woolworths was around, and it cost more, and we really enjoyed the movie, but we saw on the thing, like with Scream 2, we saw number 2 first, but we couldn't find number 1. So my mum bought it for $15.99 on VHS. So we could watch it, and that used to become the type of thing with the VHS. So I think, go on.
I'll just say you've hit upon something interesting there because do you feel that the price hike now, and I mean, we'll get into that later as well, that the price hike now is representative of what you would have paid back in the day of VHS, or do you think it's substantial?
No, not at all. Not at all. Early days, but not now. I mean, people go on about the whole rising, all this. Me personally, I think it's just a way of ripping people off for the most part. But then that's just, it's just me. And it's the other thing as well is what people need to understand is I buy large quantities a lot of the time because I want that thing. So I have a different view than the average person. They might go in and say, you know what, I want this one Blu-ray that's going to cost 60 quid. I'm like, do I want that one Blu-ray for 60 quid? Or do I want something like these things where I can get like 6 or 7 movies together? Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, that's exactly it. You've hit the nail on the head yet again, because the problem that you find is when something like, say, a Bridget Jones film comes out, and we'll get into DVD versus Blu-ray as well. But people, I think the misconception is people do still want to own physical copies of certain films. They have got wise to the fact that if a group of people want to watch a Bridget Jones film, they might not necessarily be on one of the streaming platforms, and they might not like that. So they might go out and buy that one film. But I think what FOP and companies in the UK worked out, I don't know if it's true of the US as well, it seems that way, that when a Marvel film or a signature film comes out that's a big film, people will go in and pay for that one film, and they won't be superior to the average.
Who knows it? We've been out shopping together.
But so I think Yeah, that is exactly it. That the people they're going, why are we pricing everything that they're going to buy 5 or 6? The average person isn't. Let's just price all of the units higher, so that when people go in and buy this, that we're making a profit off of one sale rather than a
Yeah.
profit off of only 10 sales. Now I understand the reasoning behind that, but I'm getting, and I'm saying this delicately because there's a lot of YouTubes I watch and love, like Films at Home. There's a guy called The Collector, I think his name is The Film Collector, who does reviews on 35mm. I'm not going to recommend him. But the videos are getting very propagandary, and it's because they have
Yeah.
this knee-jerk fear that we all have that we can't do, which is why we've chosen our backgrounds today, the browsing experience, which is the best part of shopping, no? When you go in and you go, oh, they've got this, oh, I hate this. You and Alex will say, oh, did you see this film? It's terrible, and you're conversing. So everyone loves that. I love that too. The problem is are HMV and FOP exploiting that? I feel yes, they are overcharging. What's really changed since COVID is the streaming platforms have grown in popularity for a lot of logistical reasons, especially during that time. And we talked briefly on the end of our last chat about why streaming is not a bad thing. It opens up world markets. You couldn't release no company in the UK could make a profitable run of a small Korean teen series, but Netflix can. They can just throw it up with everything else subtitled. So you're not going to be able to buy stuff like that physically easily anyway. So it's good that the streaming platforms are out there.
Well,
But
that's one of my biggest problems with Bollywood movies now. Before COVID, you were still getting regular releases, kind of.
Mhm.
Now you're lucky to get 1 or 2 DVDs a year, and because they're all on streaming.
Exactly. And yeah, so what's really happened is that the units of the so let's take Barbie and Oppenheimer as an example. I think Barbie and Oppenheimer were the two biggest films of last year. They would have sold prior to streaming coming along and basically being the new king in town. They would have sold they would have sold units in their millions and millions per home, because the only way people would be able to watch Barbie and Oppenheimer once or continuously is to buy a copy or to rent a copy from Love Film. So that isn't happening anymore. I'm sure a lot of
No.
people saw Barbie and Oppenheimer digitally, not even via physical media. So do we then open the question of, do we then just get rid of physical media, which some companies have experimented with, or farm it out to third or fourth parties? Or do we just make sure that the prices are higher so that when we sell a copy of Oppenheimer or Barbie, it's almost the equivalent of the olden days of what we would get for two?
Yeah.
And I think that is, to me, what I am seeing. And I find it a bit distasteful that a lot of companies in the UK are saying, well, we've released this special collector's edition of this film. And I go, right, that's great. What extras have you done? And they've done a few, or they've ported over extras. But basically, what you're paying for is what I snootily term pretty paper. Pretty paper is very easy.
Yeah.
If you remember, I thought this the other day. I don't want to hijack the conversation, but yeah, I saw the Gone Girl Blu-ray release, and I noticed it had that storybook in it. I think you own that one as
Yeah.
well. That
Yeah.
wasn't
Yeah.
a special edition. You just got that storybook in it as
Yeah.
well.
That was
But
free.
now, to get that version of Gone Girl, they would say contains special book, £40. And I'm like,
Yeah.
does he
I
really?
remember when you'd go into a store and it'd be like an exclusive bonus disc with the movie.
Yeah.
And you'd be like, oh, I've got to get this version because it's the same price as the normal version, but I'm getting it. Same with the media book ones of the superhero stuff before they clocked on, oh, look, we can charge $20 more for this. See, my problem is this. You go into a store like Pop or HMV, right? They'll have some of the movies right there because purposely, like you said about Netflix, they keep it out. They keep one movie out and they put that trilogy set next to it, but they know people will pay that extra £15 more because they go, oh, I've got the whole set this way, right?
Exactly.
And the truth is, it just is, it's a con because, oh, you can get these two here for, let's say, £8. But, oh, look, the trilogy set here is, £8 each, that's 16. Or the trilogy set is 30. People are going to pick the trilogy set because they're going to go, oh, well, I've got them all. Oh, look, there's some nice fancy cover here sometimes. And it's terrible. Like I was thinking not too long ago, I was thinking about some of the collector sets like the Fancy Pro you were talking about. When Dragons, I think it was Dragons Forever, came out on Blu-ray over here. The art cards were terrible. They were thin and really, same as the paper for the posters. They've upgraded that since, but it's still easy paper. You know, why? And I don't understand why people buy these movies if they're not people that know about these movies in the sense that they're not going to like them. Because we've got into a culture as well now where it's like, oh, let's buy all the movies from a company. You know, George does this, and this ain't an attack on George because, you know, George does it because he loves these companies. He does like most of their films. But I'm talking about people that don't. And people that don't have any real interest in these films, but they pick them up and then they never watch them because they're like, oh, I don't like those films really, but I bought them because they were part of this collection. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And to me, I don't understand that. But they've got this thing down there where they do it.
To interject there, I'd say what some YouTubers would say to us, but then you're not supporting physical media, so do you worry it will die? You know?
And my answer would be this. I kick my wife out of bed and I put physical media next to me in the shape of a human and I hug it every night. Right? And yes, it does actually work. Right? Basically, it says that, if you feel that way, you're a bit of a numpty because, we want physical media to work, right? We want it to stay. But there are limits. You know, if you're just paying a fortune.
For me, I don't like feeling exploited. I don't like. There's been a significant shift in companies like Umbrella and Second Sight away from what's called standalone releases over to only boutique editions. And I'm not shitting on those boutique editions. Some of the booklets and whatnot are very nice. But if someone said to me, do I want to pay £50 for a single film to own High Tension, to get booklets and some postcards in it, or get the exact same disc for £15, then I would say, well, I'm not really going to pay £25. I could get a coffee table book in Waterstones on the making of.
Aaron in the house.
I think that's a very good point, Aaron. Yeah. I think you should curate. And my worry is for everybody here is that I don't like hearing that if you're a Marvel fan and whatnot and you own all those in steelbooks, because there've been a significant price hike. And I do feel that companies are exploiting people's love of film because what used to be the case, going back to VHS, is that you bought so many of these. I mean, double dipping wasn't really a thing on VHS, mainly with the widescreen editions that came in the mid 90s. But you didn't get versions of Back to the Future with.
Well, the only time you double dipped was if there was like a 3-movie pack and there was only one movie in that pack you couldn't get outside.
And now we live in a world of double dip, collector's editions. Companies like Umbrella are only, and one of the companies I want to highlight, which show you can do both, is Via Vision. So Via Vision did, for all you Americans out there, a release of the On the Buses films. The On the Buses are like this really cheesy 70s TV show that me and Malcolm have got a lot of love for. And the 3 films are like the most non-cinematic films ever. They're not anything you need to see in a cinema or in high definition. But they put a package together that put the 3 discs in. They got a lot of extras that were quite cheap to commission. They put a little booklet in it. And they did the whole package for what would work out in English pounds is something like £30 or slightly over.
Yeah.
And yet you've got companies in the UK, and Via Vision don't own those films either. They would have had to buy them from Studio Canal with the UK rights holders.
Same with the Carry On thing list.
Exactly. So this bleating of, we have to pay extra money for these titles. Yeah, I'm fairly sure if Second Sight want to release Barbie, they're going to have to pay through the nose for that because that's a huge.
It's interesting. Title. It's interesting you bring up VI Vision. Today I had a VI Vision package turn up with Randall Hockett Deceased, The Prisoner, The Persuaders, and the TV series, and they're in those beautiful box sets that you open up and they cost less than the sets over here, though.
Yeah,
which is mental.
Exactly.
Which is like 40 quid.
And that's for party rights holders as well, because just to forgive me for everyone in the group who already knows this, a lot of films are released. I'm not talking about Barbie to bring that up again. that Barbie is a Warner film that's released by Warner Home Video. They clearly own everything to do with that particular film. But what's happening with Second Sight via Vision is they're buying titles in from rights holders. They would have gone to the people who, Sublock H, interesting. They would have gone to whoever owns The Hitcher, for example, which they've done a lot of work on, and a lot of good work on, I have to say, Second Sight, and they've held back the release to finalise that work, and they've done a bloody good job with making sure that film is a good addition. But then they're charging money for it, which I'm fairly sure, based on what we saw from Via Vision and the like, is probably a little bit too much compared to all the work they've done. And that, I feel, is exploitation, and it is not really fair. On basically, we've got to a place now where the collector is believed someone who will pay anything. And me and Malcolm have talked privately about people who pride themselves on owning a certain edition of a film that went out of stock very quickly, and they go, "Yeah, I own it. How much did you pay for it? £100. Have you watched it? No. Do you want to watch it? No. I own it and no one else does. That's why I bought it." And a lot of people are trying to exploit that, I feel, which I think is really sad. I don't like that. And it means I am, to go back to something Aaron said earlier, curating what I buy. But it also means that I'm not seeing fantastic films out there. Raf mentioned a lot of Japanese films out there. If those films, back in the day, I used to go into FOP, and I used to go into FOP, and everything that was £6 under the Arrow label I used to buy that I felt might be interesting or a film that I might like, because £6 to me is a fair price for an item. I'd say in nowadays £7 would be a fairer price with inflation and everything else.
Cheapskate.
Say again, Malcolm? Cheapskate. Well, there you go. But these days we're not looking at £7, are we? We're looking at 10 or 12. And and that's not even that's sale prices. You go, well,
it's funny because I've had a credit note for CEX. Now this shows you how things have changed with me. I used to go in CEX. I would spend a credit note of money almost instantly. Right. I've used the same credit note in CX. I think it was like £89 originally, and I've still got £37 on it. Right. Because I refuse to pay certain prices what I see in there.
Right.
So I saw the Black Lagoon set in there, Creature Black Lagoon, because didn't have it. That and the two other movies. They wanted 15 quid with it, and it had to slip. And I was like, no, I'm still not buying it. Because to me, that should be like 8 quid now. It's been out long enough, and they're dated, and they're on 4K.
But CX are another example of the way the industry has changed, because me and Malcolm were big wheeler dealers with CEX, trading in, swapping. And what I found recently upgrading some of my Blu-rays to 4K is that I would take training day in and they would only offer me £1 for it. And I'd be like, oh, okay. So you're only selling it for like £2, right? It's like, no, we're selling it for £4. I went, right, so your £3 profit margin? And that's the other major thing that's changed is the collecting has now got to a point where they can shortchange and exploit collectors, take more from the collector and give them less, because the fear of physical media dying is, there's a smaller pool of people buying films. I think on that much we can all agree. Whereas your mum and dad used to buy things, the classic films like The Italian Job and whatnot in Woolworths, they're not doing that anymore. They're just watching it on Netflix. So the pool of people who are buying films are only really dedicated, diehard cineasts or people who want to own certain editions of films. So they're charging more for that and giving less for it so that their profit margins remain the same. There's a bigger argument there as to the disc companies and how they get involved as well.
You're bloody one person. I'm not one that loses it in the store.
Dealing.
I'm not
it's
the
what
one
you
who
were
loses it in the store.
Wasn't it, Malcolm?
It was. I
do
get arguments with them sometimes. But go back to the X quickly, from what you were saying. My problem is I've got a lot of movies I want to trade in. And they're like, oh, you get 10p for this now.
Yeah, I won't do that.
I'm like, I ain't taking 10p or a penny for a film.
I'd much rather give them to a family member that might watch it, love it. I'm not letting CEX. So, a recent example was, do I want to upgrade my Red Dwarf, the sci-fi series DVDs to Blu-ray? We know that the Blu-ray isn't significantly higher quality, but it's less on the shelf, a bit more extras, bit of slightly higher quality. I'm not doing that because I'm not giving my blue DVDs to CEX for 10p so they can sell them for £3 or £4. I'm not doing that. That is not fair, and it's not fair on the person paying £3 or £4 either. I'd rather wait till he comes in the store and go, you know what, I'm just going to give you this Red Dwarf DVD because I know you want it and you love it, and you're not exploiting it and profiteering off it.
Well, I think
really
it's wrong, I mean, I think the culture's wrong. I remember years ago trying to trade in some Xbox games when they were dying out before they got the resurgence they do now. And I got home and I looked at the scene. I was like, I got nothing for 2 of the games. How's that even possible?
Yeah, and but the thing is,
that was when they sold them for 10p each.
It's
very. That's the other thing about CEX. Right, the other thing about CEX, I'll cut you off here just to finish this bit off. You used to get 10 and 25p movies in there. You used to get, you used to only have to pay for 1 shipping, right? Now it's $2.95 per item. We used to, me and Marx, what we used to do was we used to get a big bundle together, we'd buy them together, and then depending on who put the money through, we'd give the other one the money, and it was brilliant. It was a brilliant time. Now you can't buy anything off them. I put 3 things in my cart, $2.95 per item to ship. So that's £9 right there.
That is not cost reflective to what it needs to handle that. That is them tearing off the back of it.
It's called price gouging.
Exactly. And the weird thing is I left Zavi because I got well, I want to talk about the Hut group.
Well, you and me both with Zavi.
And but Zavi, I wanted to pre-order Beetlejuice, and I want to mention that in a different context in a moment.
We have many, Raf. We have many with booklets.
We do, yeah, I do. But again, going back to what Aaron said, curating. I mean, it was sad because back in the day, I've owned Arrow stuff, especially with Malcolm. Malcolm's like the horror guru, so he would tell me, he would show me like an Argento film, and he would say, "You might like these ones," because they were £6 each. I didn't borrow them off him to watch them. I just bought them. Nowadays, I don't. I couldn't do that. I couldn't do that at the prices. I don't own these beautiful editions of Bird with the Crystal Plumage and what they bought out because they're just too expensive. I've got to go.
I missed the days HMV, which goes with that, where you could do 5 for 30.
Exactly, that's long gone. And that's the other thing that irritates me. These fake offers. 2 for 30. And I go, that's not an offer, that's retail price. Because the one thing I must, if people agree with us or disagree with us that are listening to this chat, the one thing I ask you to take away, regardless of your opinion, is this. Please, please, please do some research on something before you buy it in a sale. Because what most companies do, including HMV and FOP, is they never use the recommended retail price for something like Furiosa. They will always charge, I think the unit price to buy a Furiosa new in FOP would be something like £18. So what they will do when it comes to sale time is they'll reinstate the retail price that they never use at £25, and then they'll say, it's now £17, you're getting a bargain. But you're not, you're only getting £1 off. You're being swindled and suckered in. So
exactly. I agree with this completely, George. This is what I think about companies. They should sell 1 copy only, not multiple copies of the same movie. Gives other people a chance to get that movie. Now, the other thing is these anniversary editions, right? What a joke, most of them. Because they put like 1 feature on it.
Yeah. I mean, Paramount have been running on these for years. They're now, I think Clueless is the latest victim of it. They've been like anniversary edition, and there's no extras on it or anything, And also with Mean Girls, they did it incredibly, referring to the 2004 Mean Girls, they did a very mean thing living up to its title. They did the Burn Book edition of that on Blu-ray, and then within 2 years, did a Blu-ray, a 4K edition of the same film. That is really, really. I mean, it wasn't like that Burn Book edition was £12 to buy either. It was very expensive, and to do the same thing again, and Arrow also did it with Carrie. It's really not a good way, to bite the hand that feeds you. These collectors, I'm sure, if anyone here from the Hut group that owns Arrow or
if you're watching this and you're from the Hut, we've got our eye on you.
They're like, because all the collectors that you're talking to, and this is what it comes down to. If we announce that we are bringing out the whole Argento collection in 4K tomorrow, then people will pay any price for it, and we can exploit that, and we will. And that's what it comes down to.
It's like all these different still book versions they keep doing.
Why not bring out the 4K edition of the Argento box set at a price that covers your costs, allows you to make a profit, and then release another box set alongside it, a smaller Giallo director? Because
Yeah,
someone like you or I would go, oh, we'll get both them because they're both only like £75 for the entire set.
yeah,
But it doesn't work off that business principle anymore, and it's really sad. I think it's had that. I'm not saying don't support physical media. I'm going back to something that Aaron said. Curate what you buy. Please don't blindly buy, because I think Umbrella in particular are getting very and I love Umbrella. Umbrella have done some fantastic releases, and I own a lot of Umbrella's titles.
yeah. But
But
they
they're
become a
really
bit funny, aren't they?
well, they're trying to turn everything into a boutique release, and and that's very mean spirited, because those boutique releases are not cheap.
No.
Their Super Mario set, granted, had a lot of different discs in it, so hats off to them for that. Did the price of that box set represent
No.
the work and everything they put in? Of course it didn't. It's profiteering. And again, this is where we're going to get angry comments later under the chat from people who say, well, you're not supporting home media, so it will just die. And I'm going, well, I don't really want to, I don't want it to die, firstly, but I don't want to support something that is now actively exploiting me and trying to force my love of a film to overpay for it. And that,
Yeah.
is something that shouldn't
Well,
happen.
I'm going to be honest. Just because you love media doesn't mean you want to be ripped off, does it?
No, exactly.
Maybe we wait to be reasonably priced so more people can get into it and enjoy it just as much as we do.
Yeah.
Because
To change,
let's be honest, the average person ain't going to go out there and pay £29.99 for a still book of a movie that's just come out, but they don't know if they haven't got the money for it. I mean, I don't know the last time I actually bought a still book.
and it's interesting. So I can vouch for Malcolm for this, because people who know him outside of me will go, is he telling the truth of how he used to buy films? Yes, he is. He used to blind buy steelbooks of everything from Ted to the latest Avengers film, because the prices for the steelbooks were fair. They weren't cheap, but they weren't over expensive. They were reasonable. So he would go, okay, so I am going to buy a steelbook of Ted, but I'm not particularly sure I like it, but it looks nice and I'm happy to support it. And of course, you don't do that anymore, because who can afford to?
Exactly.
And with prices change, and there's inflation in there as well. So I'm very mindful of the fact that £6 in a Fox store should be £7 now, but what it should not be is £12 or £15. My stepmother is an alien. It's never gone down from Arrow. It stays at £10. That's a very niche horror film to have such an expensive price.
I do agree. A lot of boutique releases are an absolute money pit. I will say, but I think Radiance are really good at the minute because they've got their prices pretty decent, especially on the box sets.
A big shout out to
But I will say this. I will say this about Radiance. I love Radiance. I think they release fantastic quality films. But I don't think they're... I feel like they need to be more transparent about, if we're not doing and I've bitched about this constantly since September. All right. If they're not going to do the subscription in September, they need to say, we're going to do in October or November, to give people a chance to know when it's going to happen if you did it the year before at that time. Just so that lets people know. So not just like, oh, wow, it's up now. Because sometimes people go, I ain't got the money for it now. So, tell people. What's this?
I've only picked up Radiance titles secondhand, but I certainly like their range. And agree with Aaron. And it seems that they're moving away from the Aerodrome and Arrow Academy titles a lot more.
Arrow Academy's dead, isn't it? That's what it basically is now.
Exactly. They're basically, just staying with horror, and because horror is and this is what upsets me. And I'm quite lucky that I do have an interest in horror, but certainly not as vast as Malcolm, and certainly not as knowledgeable as people like Alex, Malcolm, or Rafe. But they are the ones who are really being screwed. I cannot put it any other way. They are the guys who are like, rare Japanese horror box set, $100, and you're going to pay it, aren't you? We know you will. And to me, I go, why are you again? Just to give a fair dues, we know that they're buying these titles in from other companies and other rights holders, so the price has got to be reflective of that. The price that we're being charged is not reflective of that. It's at least, I'd say, 20 to 25% higher than it should be, because
Well,
they want to
especially
profit.
considering a lot of the Japanese stuff, and I'm not talking about things like Ring, but I'm talking about like the J Horror set coming out. So that's
Yeah,
all more on the cheap side of Japanese cinema, right?
and
So I can tell you that set shouldn't be more than it's what 45, 50 quid. I would say that should be like a 30, 35 pound set, realistically.
yeah. I mean,
Also, as
there's
for
companies
Amazon,
like
not
Viavision. There's companies like Viavision now shown you can do it, and Indicator, as I mentioned earlier, in their sales, the BFI I think are quite reasonable on sales as well. You know, you get a lot of titles that are, that are reflective. I mean, I think it's a question if on the buses and the carry-on sets, because they're not what you would consider films that need to be in high definition, and they charging for that. It'd be really interesting in the future if you see Viavision bringing out more horrors and sci-fi, if they try to hike the prices up to because they can, and then that will be proof that they're only really going after certain collectors. But I
I
want
think
to
the
change tack
reason
about.
I
Sorry, go
will
on. No,
answer
you.
this question quickly. I think
Sure.
the reason that Amazon don't carry arrows anymore is because there was a lot of problem with arrow discs for a long period on
Yes.
Amazon. And
Yes.
I think Amazon got so tired of getting the bloody things, because you got to think about all these replacement disc things that keep happening.
Yes.
So I think that's a big part of it, guys, because you can buy them from HMV still, you can buy them from other places. So I think Amazon had probably a bad contract deal with them as well over that. That's what I believe.
No, I think that's true, and it's very rare we could say, "Well done, Amazon," because Amazon are not good to physical media, as anyone who's got one from the post will know. But it basically creates a precedent for Arrow to be now realised they've got to do better, or they will lose
Yeah.
major or distribute.
Dubtidia says, do you both think that very limited boutique releases have become scalp bait for resellers harm the hobby as a whole, or is it unavoidable with the limited runs? I think it is very harmful.
Comes
You know,
back to everything we
because
said
I'll give
earlier
you an
about.
example. Aaron, right? Mexican Macabre set. Sells out, can't get it. Looks online, 5 times the price, right? Comes in stock again because all these companies now find these stocks back in their cupboards somewhere.
Yeah.
Still can't get it because it sells out immediately. Why? So these people can put them immediately online again. When I was on the Vinegar Syndrome one recently, they had some really great things that were really early Vinegar Syndrome. And one guy bought Vice Academy 1 to 3. And he went, that's great. I can put that online now for like $300 and make some money off it. And
I
you're
have a friend
like,
who actually does it, yeah. I have a friend who actively does it, who's not Malcolm. But yeah, it's exactly what is happening. It's like ticket scalping.
Yeah.
There are things in place for ticket scalping. Yeah, I despise scalpers as well. I have given away very rare collector's editions of things to people who genuinely love them, rather than sell them for next to nothing and for profiteering, because I just don't believe that's what the collecting spirit is. But to bring it round, I talked about it earlier, but I want you to talk about it, Malcolm, because I'm talking too much as usual. About just to change tact a little bit, to talk about what we talked about before we come online, about what's changed with the collecting experience and the culture, because we talked a bit about London Film and Comic Con.
So my problem with the whole culture now is I'll start off with let's go back for me 15 years ago, right? So 15 years ago, I could go and I could easily find films in cash converters. I could easily do this, and it was fine. And you felt like you could easily find the stuff. Fast forward to places like London Film, right? We went to our first one together, didn't we? And sorry about this. Mark was worried about missing pills, so he got us up at 6 a.m. in the bloody morning. Right?
I forgot that.
But the next year, when I wanted to meet people, it was like, I ain't getting up at that time. Screw you. I was like, you never.
That sounds completely
true. It was true, right? Anyway, so we went there, and it was nice and easy experience. There was a great atmosphere, but it was fairly empty, other than the people that wanted to see people like Patrick Stewart, Hayden Pantier, you name it. The stars there.
The only thing I want to interject here, which ties into what you're going to say next, I suspect, is we met Natalia Tenner, who people might know from the Harry Potter films, and something else, which at that point she had just started. and someone in front of the head of the queue said to her, "We really like this new show you've done, the Game of Thrones show."
Yeah.
And she said, "Yeah, it's getting a lot of traction, and then people seem to enjoy it because this was on series one." And
Yeah.
and we were able to have long conversations with talent because there was only like 5 people queuing up to see her after them.
And it felt like a community. It felt more like a community, didn't it? You could go in, people were joking, people would take pictures with a guy who had the Shaun of the Dead shirt and everything, and there was no issue whatsoever, right?
And then
So
Game of Thrones. Go on.
It cost like £8 to get in. It cost £8 to get in each, and you could come back in a night. I was able to go out and get something to eat and come back. It was easy, right? Easy peasy, lemon squeezy. Then what happens is you come back the next year. Game of Thrones had hit. It was massive. Couple of Game of Thrones people were going to be there, and it was packed solid, right?
You mentioned,
and the prices shot up to £16. Now they're like £29.
And you mentioned superhero films, the Marvel.
Oh yeah, superhero movies kicked off more as well.
As well is, I think, the David Tennant era of Doctor Who made Doctor Who overnight become a huge sensation again. And that's not to take away from old Doctor Who, because I know you diehards out there have always loved it and have always supported it, and we definitely saw you at those conventions. But the David Tennant generation of Doctor Who opened up a whole new young fan base to it. Yeah,
it did.
And
still pain in the ass as well.
Yeah.
Which wrestler did you want to meet? I would meet quite a few actually at Comic-Con. All the ones I'd like to meet for the most part wouldn't be there because, like I said, themselves too high. But I met Virgil there, and I met a couple of others like Magnus, who's Nick Aldis and stuff. I met Mickey James, which was nice because that was on my fantasy room when I was a kid. But anyway, so you go there, and the whole experience was just ruined. Because you had everybody going there, and you had all these people crushing each other, and it took away from the fun. You couldn't look at stalls. I remember looking at the anime store. I think it was Manga, the company, I think it was. And there was this guy there, right? A funny-looking guy. Obviously was terrified of things because he kept staring at me like I was going to steal stuff. And I was like, there's kids on the other side that could do it, not me,
Yeah.
It got to the point where it was so hard to go, and the prices shot up, and it became more of a corporate greed thing than it did about the community and about being somebody who loves cinema and that. But that's a similar thing to what Benet said about when he went to conventions. He said he quit because when he used to go, this was in America when Fangoria did it. He said you could meet the people for free and stuff, and it was like really nice. So then you had to start paying. And I will say the same thing, but I said to him at the time, cheapskate, right? But in this business, when someone wants like $500 for an autograph, it's ridiculous.
The reason why I wanted to mention this, because I believe it is relative to, because we're like, well, this is all well and good, and you make valid points, Malcolm, but how does it tie into home media? What we're looking at is an explosion in geek culture. We're looking at, because of Marvel, because of Game of Thrones, Doctor Who, Stranger Things, a lot of other shows that we forgot to mention. Yeah. There's been a huge explosion in geek culture, which created the Funko Pop series, which someone's got someone in their family, if not themselves, that collects those things. And what we're really looking at, something that was quite underground before and was only followed by certain sectors of people, now becomes, it's interesting when you watch those old teen films from the 90s that the geek kids were, the laughed at kids, or they were presented in a very sort of.
There was one time a year where we could come out of our basements, and now we have to stay in them, don't we?
Like the turtle, come out of the sewers. But now those geek kids are as cool as the Mean Girls. That's what the big change is. And I think the reason why I think that's relative to home media is because they went, why are we stopping with add-on things like Funko Pops and books and collectibles and comics? Why don't we just extend that to the actual physical films themselves? Why can't we charge more for those? And that's exactly what they do. And and it's I think it is that. I do agree with that as well, Aaron. It is. I mean,
Aaron knows it's an original geek.
But to bring it back to a film that's quite current when we recorded this, the Beetlejuice sequel. The original Beetlejuice, that girl that Winona Ryder played, Lydia, was considered, an off-kilter character. And nowadays, and you can definitely see that's true of the sequel, that character's a huge role model for a lot of goth kids who grew up loving that film. But that was an underground thing in the 90s. And what happened? I mean, to be fair, I think the roots were sown with the grunge scene as well. You would definitely get an example of more subversive stuff coming out. And Marvel obviously knocked their first few films out of the park and created a whole different, zeitgeist for how superhero films are received. And what this just meant was we built it to a point now where even without streaming, the question has to be asked of would they be charging more for these items anyway? I think the fact that streaming means that they've lost a lot of unit sales because of the way people watch films are different means that they are definitely going to charge more anyway.
That's streaming.
Well, streaming, we talked about this. Without streaming, we wouldn't have a lot of things, and there's been a lot of great series. Like Sex Education is an interesting one because Sex Education was something that all the networks passed on. Netflix wanted content, they wanted different voices, tried different things. It's funny, for every big Netflix show, there's at least 10, Space Forces or something that didn't land. But Netflix, because they're a new network, for want of a better phrase, they want to try different things. So you are getting a stronger, creative, different output. I can't imagine any major network in the US supporting Squid Game, for example, which was a Netflix phenomenon. So it's good. I mean, I said this earlier. I don't understand these people on YouTube who say pick a side. Don't pick a side. Pick everything. As long as the streaming prices are reasonable, which for the moment I think they are.
There's no reason. Not anymore.
Have they gone up again? Okay.
I mean, Disney's decent. Disney's decent. That's like £4.99, right? But I do think things are slowly creeping up to the point where they're becoming cable-style level prices.
Now is that every studio believes their back catalogue is strong enough to start their own company. And I always go, is it though? Because Paramount have made some fantastic films over the years, and they own some fantastic television like Star Trek and Frasier and whatnot. But I don't think one studio should have its own channel. No. That's a ridiculous.
Like I said, it's like I've said to Alex and Aaron and many other people. If all these companies came together and made one definitive platform, nobody would ever feel like they had to go outside the system or anything to watch movies. They actually put the titles on there, and the titles that they can't put on there, they actually explained realistically. People would be more accepting at a decent price. You wouldn't have people saying bootlegs of these films online. You wouldn't have any of that. Who's killing the movie industry? Honestly, it's the companies themselves.
Well, I think the companies themselves are getting too greedy, and they're basically trying to exploit people. I do wonder whether because I feel we talked about this before we came online, that the collectors market, the physical market is always going to be there. But are we looking at in 10 years' time that if I want to own, well, I think if I want to own, what was the Sydney Sweeney comedy you watched? Anyone But You? Or whatever.
Yeah, Anyone But You.
There just won't be a market for that, because they'll go, well, that film you only watch on Netflix. We don't have a physical copy at all. But Beetlejuice, you can get on physical media. It's £100. And because that's the only way because that the type of people who collect those kind of films might buy Beetlejuice, they're less likely to buy a Sydney Sweeney romantic comedy.
I haven't played a game called Dominance and Dicks, so if anyone wants to play that with him, go ahead.
Okay. What right now? It'd be great if we just saw everyone leave the chat. They're like, Dominance and Dicks are all over that. These two have been going on about this video for an hour. We tuned out. Like, Dominance and Dicks is where it's at. We don't want to be listening to these guys.
We did get on physical. We got on DVD only, Aaron, which was shocking because it should have at least been on Blu-ray.
DVD is a whole. I mean, DVD.
Never heard of that, Alex.
So much. Because the other problem is DVD is not in modern terms good quality. So the other thing that you hear on YouTube channels is streaming quality is not as good as a disc, and that's true if it's 4K. It can be also true of most Blu-rays if they're made well, but it's really ridiculous that people are still buying DVDs. If you live in Europe, those DVDs are sped up as well. There's this thing called PAL Speed Up.
But do you know how many frames?
I watch DVD so little now that whenever I put a DVD on, I can instantly hear the speed up, and it just drives me insane. And I have to just go, I can't watch this because I can hear that
We'll
everything
focus on
is
Patreon only.
so. Yeah, so I don't really get it. It's because people never really grew out of DVD.
Good.
Yeah, I
Let's
agree
talk
with you
about
about
let's talk about DVD culture. Let's
sure.
talk about DVD culture right now, right? Now, I was talking to Donna about this because, you know, Donna was around before there was even physical media.
Yeah,
So, you know, 26 more years and she'll be a century years old. I'm proud of that. Hopefully she gets a letter from King William, because I'm sure
King
it'll
William.
be in when that happens.
Yeah.
But anyway, DVD's still a strong seller because people say it's affordable for its thing. But my biggest problem with DVD, it isn't the quality, isn't any of this. It's if a film is filmed in 4K, 1080p, then it shouldn't be just on DVD because you're lowering the product of what people are seeing. If it's a
Yes.
film that has great cinematography as well, you're killing what the director has created.
The DVD is still, I mean, DVD technology before Blu-ray actually got to quite a good place of compression, and it was the best it ever was, like any technology would. I was watching films like the Daniel Craig drama Flashbacks of a Fall, and an old Paramount DVD of Up the Junction from the 60s, and the DVDs look really good because they've used all of the compression of that 8 gig to make a good quality transfer. But Blu-ray just came and just good. And second run DVD do it as well. But Blu-ray came and just made that completely unnecessary. They fixed the frame rate because of the change of definition. They can now show films in the correct frame rate in Europe for those that are on PAL. And it just completely was a game changer. For whatever reason, Blu-ray, and I do feel the full lies with Blu-ray, was marketed incorrectly. Was again probably, I mean, it wasn't that expensive compared to the DVD, but it wasn't really trying to. I think what they should have probably done is force
Evil man.
completely off and then just have a Blu-ray DVD combi back in the day, and that would have basically moved the market in the right direction. So we're in a really weird world now, and I was reminded of it with the Sydney Sweeney romantic comedy, that because most people who buy that film, and I'm not saying all for those who own it, don't care about the quality, they're going, most people are going to buy a DVD. I have people in my own family who constantly buy DVDs, even though they're in Blu-ray equipment. And I go, why?
See, my problem is this. I said to Donna, when DVD came around, VHS died in what, 2006? Right? So DVD took over and we saw the upgrade. And my view is this: if people would stop the DVD gravy train back in the day, most of the TV shows we watch now would get them in HD. They've been on Blu-ray releases like The Good Doctor, SWAT, you name it. All these shows would have been on Blu-ray. But because people stuck to DVD, what's happened is now we have DVDs and we barely get any Blu-rays of them. You know, but I've noticed one thing. I've noticed a lot of 4K's not been released anymore because we're getting Blu-rays instead of 4K.
Well, this is exactly it. The market's a complete jumble. Poor Things was my favourite film of 2023. I don't own it because the digital version of Poor Things is 4K and the Blu-ray is 1080p. Why would I pay for a Blu-ray of a film unless it's full of extras, which the Fox edition of that film in the UK does not? It's not. It got some, but very little. You know, and this is a bit where someone whined to me, not one of you guys, that I'm not supporting physical media. And I go, yeah, because physical media isn't supporting me. It's trying to shortchange me on the right version of the film, you know.
What do you got to say to this, Mark?
Yeah. Do you ever wonder if the higher quality format at home moves more people to staying at home than going out? I work in that industry, Aaron, and all I can tell you is me and Malcolm, when Malcolm kindly said, do I want to do this with him? I said, yep. I said, what's the drill? And he said, we watch a film, we talk about it. I'd like you to rewatch the film before we talk about it. So I did that exact same thing with Abigail, which I saw theatrically. Watching Abigail, and I had to watch it via a phone as well because I was very busy. So I had to kind of watch it in pieces over a phone file. You know, I purchased an iTunes file and watched it that way. And that was far better quality than the theatrical experience I got. And as someone who works with cinema, that's like, what went wrong there? What went wrong there, and that's a whole conversation for another video, is that
Yes.
the industry has gone the way where they believe they need less specialized professionals. Not all
It's fallen
cinemas are
apart in a lot of areas.
exactly. So you actually do have a better chance of watching a better presentation of Abigail in the home than you do randomly wandering into a
Yeah.
multiplex with your fingers.
So release those 4Ks, you lazy bastards.
Exactly, it's not true. And Abigail is a film that doesn't have a 4K release, which is odd because it's a horror title and a very well reviewed one.
And
So,
it would have probably looked really good on 4K as well with the colour schemes and everything.
but to open it out even more, the reason that prompted this as a suggestion for me and Malcolm to do is something monumental that happened last week. I haven't even spoke to you about this in detail yet, Malcolm, but we referenced it. So Beetlejuice came out in cinemas worldwide for the most part, and it did well. It did better than expected, and the general consensus is that film is now a hit. So why on earth did Warner and the creative team then announce during that weekend, when they're selling tickets and people are excited to see this film, that it will definitely be on digital for Halloween? That is basically telling everyone, so if you were going to the cinema, don't bother. Now, I don't want to breathe conspiracy theory into this, but it's an odd strategy because what it used to be was when you asked when Jurassic Park was coming out on home release in 1993, they go,
It'd be
we
months
don't
later.
know. Because they were trying to stretch as much as you can to create a theatrical experience. You've got a film that Warners are actively making money on, that they obviously would want to make money on, and yet they've killed their own cash cow by actually saying, so if you're actually on the fence about this, don't go to the cinema because you can buy it on home within a month. It's a strange strategy, and bearing in mind this is also the company that threw their theatrical releases under a bus with HBO Max, angering directors like Denis Villeneuve and Christopher Nolan. It does make you wonder if they are actively trying to kill the cinema experience. If they recently want to go to a filmmaker like Tim Burton, we can. I'll tackle that one in a minute, Darth Sidious, or let Malcolm tackle it. But they're actively trying to dissuade people from going to the cinema so they can turn around to the Burtons, the Nolans, and go, see, we told you so. You make more money in the home. Stop worrying about theatrical. We actually want to release films in the home quicker because we don't want to take. We don't.
Well, people like Christopher Nolan specifically fight for that, though, don't they? For it to be in the cinema longer before that.
Yeah, I don't know Burton's stance on it. Tarantino's stance is another one that's quite
Personally, I miss the days when I remember my mum would go to Blockbuster and you'd find out like Scream 3 was being released, and you were like, when's it going to come out video? And it felt like it was a year, even though it was like 6 months.
It was. With Jurassic Park, it was. I think Mrs. Doubtfire was a certain amount of time as well. Because that film did, although that's not a connoisseur film, that film did family audiences about 6 to 7 months. Fox had no motivation to take it out of cinemas and put it on home release yet. Do you want to tackle what was asked earlier about resolution, Mal? Do you feel...
Well, my problem... Okay, resolution. The problem with most people is I don't think they understand because most people to this day still have standard HD TV, right?
Yeah.
You know, I mean, don't worry, it's very hard now to get a standard HD TV depending on where you are because 4K's kind of become the thing. You know, I still regret never getting a 3D TV and seeing Haley Atwell's bosoms, boom, 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 on the screen. But, you know, because that happened in the cinema.
Anyway. They're all done in 3D, those films, Mal. Oh, that was done, I think you said, wasn't it? Because we saw that.
It was done.
I didn't notice it, but Malcolm did.
Yeah, I always notice that stuff. But anyway, well, anybody knows me on here knows.
I love it, Malcolm, the publicity campaign for Captain America 3D and be like, see Haley Atwell's bosoms in 3D.
That's all I needed to give it a 5.
And what now?
Well, you know, the whole resolution thing is a very sophisticated thing because resolution, okay, you're pointing out this morning, me, on the pixels, right? So, Blu-ray is 4 times DVD.
I think so, yeah.
And 4K is
480, or it could be 576 in certain territories.
Because I think a lot of the problem with people is they don't have the right setup either. So because they don't have the right setup, they don't see it as clear or as soon as it should be. But I think the problem with a lot of the average people is they want to see the movie. They want to feel it, but they don't want to understand it as an art form so much. That's the problem. As a cinema enthusiast myself, I can tell you, but most films are not that way at all. But when you want to hit those perfect ones, you have to. Like, I'll give you an example. What's that film called? I recently picked up. Okay, let's say Last Night's Sorrow, for instance, The Colours. If you watch on DVD, you're not going to get the same beautiful usage of what that movie's doing. And I think that's the problem with a lot of people. People don't care about that, but they're missing out on the whole purpose. Because a film isn't a film. A film is an art form. It's a piece of art that you could really get into. And the problem is people don't see that.
But even if you don't look at it that way, I would say, even if you're watching Adam Sandler's The Water Boy, say for example, to pick a film that you and I have got no.
I want to see that water sparkle.
There you go. But there's going to be background jokes and things that the set designers would have put in The Water Boy. Someone who's not seen that it come out. There'll be like pictures of him as a kid or whatnot. All of those are going to be lost in like DVD resolution. You watch those in high definition, and I'm always seeing extra detail. You watch them in 4K, and you're seeing incredible extra detail. You know, I think in 4K in Beetlejuice, they actually resolve like Lydia's story. You can see that she's printed a book in the background. Not Lydia, sorry, Delia. So,
Marx about industry. I was only impressed with he's an adult film director. You are correct.
I direct Malcolm scripts. Confessions of a film enthusiast. That's a few cents.
And always finish off again. At the end of everything, the people on it will always hold movies when I've finished.
The one thing I have to say is I'm not in the film industry. I'm in the cinema industry. So if anyone wants to talk about me being a creative, I've done some extras work and whatnot that I make fun of because it's really nothing. But yeah, I'm part of the cinema industry, which is so odd after my comments about Abigail. But what I'm really talking about is, because I would actually say, putting on my professional hat now, do support the cinema industry, but also going back to something that was said earlier, curate where you go to watch a film. Don't go to watch a film in a multiplex unless you're only a multiplex in town. You've got far better chance of going to an independent and actually having someone make sure that film's at the right picture and sound level. But yeah, I work in Central London.
I think one of the best cinemas I ever went to was a place called Premier in Romford. And they did some really great showings in there. And
all Premier Romford have closed now. Romford Premier, it was a cinema that basically it was designed for people who didn't have much money, and they paid £4 to watch a film. And
it wasn't bad if they'd done it right.
I did some work for that cinema, and I tried to heighten what I could, but I hit a few walls. You know, I don't believe in my job through shortchanging people who paid to watch a film. Not saying Premier did, I hasten to add. But yeah, that happens a lot. There's a lot of cinema chains I've worked for that shall remain nameless. And what they were asking me to do was basically ignore major things to rip off the public, which is a really upsetting
statement. If you want to know what these film chains are, donate £200 and I will tell you.
And Malcolm will tell you all the things you talk about privately that I'm not allowed to talk about here.
The main bonus of UHD isn't just resolution, it's measure. Oh, you're completely right about it, but I was saying for the average person to kind of understand. And
I also feel we talked about Blu-ray being mismarketed. Let's talk about 4K being mismarketed. 4K should not be called 4K Ultra HD. It should be called Dolby Vision or High Definition Resolution. Because basically, not a high dynamic range, I should say, high definition resolution. It should be called the wrong thing, Malcolm. It should confuse people.
No, I like how you were like, I shouldn't call them this, and then you were like, no,
all credibility, my credibility in this conversation gone in a single sentence. Yeah, they are really the game changers. I think there's been a lot of mismarketing all around with home media, which is why DVD, which actually was marketed quite well, stayed around, because most people don't know what Blu-ray is. Most people certainly don't know what 4K is. And when you add 4K HDR in it, they just get scared and go, yeah, I'm just going to press a button on Netflix and have it do it for me. I don't want to get involved in all that. You know, so I think that's the real
people
problem.
Still don't know what HD DVD is.
No. And it's quite, you know.
This is a mine heart, this.
Sure.
Please sign my petition for the Rise of the Foot Soldier Collection 4K release.
Okay. I hope he's talking to you there because I won't be signing that.
Mark loves those movies.
I saw the first one. Wasn't a fan, is all I'm going to say. But people love those films, don't they? The best comment I've ever read of any review on Blu-ray Forum is from on Rise of the Foot Soldier, and it was like Rise of the Foot Soldier. What are they up to now, Mal? 5 or 6 or something?
I think they're on 7 now.
So there you go. And I think on 6, somebody said, shouldn't he have risen by now? Which I thought was genius.
Where's Billy the Kid? He's dead. He's dead. I love in Vengeance, the last one. He stabs a guy in the neck with a lobster.
Yeah. That's when you're on number 7 of Rise of the Foot Soldier. You've used every unconventional stabbing method. You've shanked everybody with everything from you start on a screwdriver on 1. By the time you're 4 or 5, you've got to get to like kitchen utensils. Now you're up to
hilarious? What's hilarious? He goes in there with weapons in a bag. Then he leaves them in the hallway, and he just starts punching everybody. It's like, what are you doing? All right, so I wanted to talk about a section quickly about VCDs. Because I wanted to do this earlier, but we kind of forgot, didn't we?
Can I just talk about, very briefly, how VCDs exist? So the reason why VCDs exist, for those of you who don't know, I don't know if Malcolm does, is because in certain territories, you couldn't use VHS and tape. It was too moist, particularly in the Philippines and in the Far East.
That's why mostly Asian and Nigerian countries, or African countries, I should say, have them. Because they were too wet and they'd easily mould. So they come up with the idea of basically the CD, which depending on where you are, could still get damaged by damp because the moisture can still get on the disc. But they saw it as more of a durable thing. And it was also cost effective. As people will know in India, but when the Blu-ray came out, it was too expensive. That's why they stopped making them. Carried on with DVDs, but the average person, if they don't want a DVD, they will buy old VCDs because they work out even cheaper. So,
and they're playable on computers. For anyone who's like, oh, I don't know the VCD player, you can play them on most DVD players and Blu-rays and 4Ks. Some will see them, some won't. The computers will play them because when you actually open the disc like a folder on a computer, you'll see it's just a video file that's just sitting there.
If you actually have a disc drive now.
If you have a disc drive now, very good point.
Poor Alex, I gave him a whole lot of VCDs, so I did the upgrades off, and he hasn't been able to watch them on anything. Yet my 4K player plays them perfectly.
Oh, okay. Well, there you go.
Okay, so here we go. So I've got 5 VCDs here, all with different style packaging. So the first one, which is one I'm not really keen on, is you've got the slip here, right? This is the slip. Yep. Might have to take the thing off. Let me take it off. I'll take the background off for a minute. That's right, guys. This isn't my home.
The illusion's ruined.
So this one comes with the slip, and you come out, and there's nothing there, just this plastic box, right? You open it up, and you get 2 discs, because most movies go over 2 discs.
Artwork as well.
If it's a longer movie, 3 discs, you can get TV series that have up to 50 discs in them, which I don't have because they're not subtitled, and that'd be very annoying to go for. So
I've only got one
interesting one. What's that?
I was going to say, I've only got one VCD, and it's of a film called Jaarzuster Nazuster, which is a Dutch musical based on a Dutch 70s TV show, which I read a review of and went, I have to see this. It sounds nuts. And I can only find it on VCD with subtitles anyway. So
weird, isn't it?
Yeah, 2 discs.
Then Shaw Brothers did a VCD line that was like this, right? Which is really classy because you pull the thing out like this, and it's in the standard case where basically you flip it over and you got one on that side and one on the other side. And I think this is my favourite out of them because it just looks classier on your shelf with the sliding, on the thing. So I like that. Oh, God, I've broken that.
It works nice with films from the Far East as well. It suits them.
It does, doesn't it? Then there's this style where basically it's just like a folder where you fold it open, which I'm not too keen on because I feel like it just opens up. I don't like that so much.
Yeah,
and
nice
it
slip.
feels more like a CD kind of soundtrack kind of cover. Then you have this style, which is a slipcover, but then it has this horrible track. But basically, you put it open, and there's no protection whatsoever on them,
Oh no,
just
they'll
a
just fall
plastic
out.
tray, which is
Especially the
horrible.
plastics, yeah.
And then the same one, technically, as the Shawbars one, but without the slipcover, is this one, which is just a plastic-looking CD case. Now, some of them would come with actual booklets in them with pictures inside, but it's very rare for that to happen. But yeah, I just thought it was interesting showing the different styles of packaging that are on a lot of these BCDs. But I got, because I recently picked these up mostly this year.
It brings me to, before we take closing questions from everybody else, what is the jewel in your collection, Malcolm? We've shit on physical media in some ways. We've cuddled it and kissed it and literally gone to bed with it in your
Yes.
case.
Yes.
But what is, we love it and we do love it. I just hope it will kind of go a bit back to the older way, or at least somewhere in the middle is where we want it. But what is the one that you love?
The jewel in my collection, I would say, and I think Anne would probably agree with me on this one. It's not Asian films because that would be too easy. It's probably in my Bergman set.
Okay.
It's got 39 discs in it, or 30 discs in it.
That's awesome.
And it's got a big box. It's that Criterion one.
Yeah.
So I would probably say that and probably the Fellini set. But, you know, they're probably like the ones I'd really show off to people, but would be easy for people to hold and kind of look at. The book in it is humongous. I made sure to bring that with me when I came back.
Criterion are the one who basically seem to have always evolved naturally and without forcing it. Or, I mean, they do slightly overcharge now, especially in the UK, it seems.
Yes.
Less so in America, where it's a little bit fairer. But they are the ones who are always kind of getting it right in terms of, you put a Criterion disc in, you can see the extras they've cultivated and searched for and made. And the booklets are substantial and significant, not just afterthoughts or journalist notes. Yeah, and Criterion, I can't really complain about. If I would say any complaint of Criterion, I would say the sad thing about them is that they're maybe being a bit too influenced by the competitors and how much they can charge. I think with third or fourth party stuff like Uncut Gems, they're very expensive. Those films.
He's very big into Hey Wainthorpe. Is Darth said yes?
Is he?
The extra.
I'm waiting for that mashup between Star Wars and Hetty Wainwright. I think that'd be awesome.
That'd be amazing, wouldn't it?
Today's world,
what would you say yours in your collection is?
Anybody? I'm sure that's going to.
What would you say during your collection is?
Well, I'm trying to think of actual nice box sets. But the weirdest thing I own is actually a VHS edition of Trainspotting. Yeah, VHS. Where
I saying that,
yeah, I put it on. It's number 46 out of 1,000. I put it on the extras on the video, and I noticed there was something wrong because I was just watching loads and loads of alternate takes of scenes and not deleted scenes. Well, this is strange. It's good they've included them. Really unusual that I've watched this Peter Mullen scene in 4 or 5 times in different ways. And I worked out that it was oh, don't worry, I'll get there, Aaron. I worked out that it was, you know, because the guy I bought it from said you need to return it because it's a misprint. They've released the wrong version. They used the wrong master tape, so you've got loads of deleted things that shouldn't be on there. So of course, when anyone tells you that, you do not return it. You hang on to it, and I've still got it to this day. But yeah, that's the weirdest thing in my collection, and that's got like a really tacky like lighter with Trainspotting written on it and things.
You've got glasses in it as well.
Has it? Has I've shown it to you. Trying to think of the best. I mean, Malcolm's actually more knowledgeable. I've got I mean, this isn't getting any better, Aaron. The Eskimo Lemon Popsicle box set from Israel, I'm told, is very deleted now. But it's not a very nice box set. It's quite sort of a tatty release.
It's got great extras, though.
But yeah, it's all in Israeli, though, all in Hebrew with no subtitles. But yeah, that's a nice one. I'm trying to think. Yeah, I asked the question. I can't answer it myself. I'm trying to. No, I'd have to come back to you there. I'll tell you what. Again, it's DVD. I've not got any 4K Blu-ray. The only Fools and Horses magazine collection. For in the UK,
Oh, that
they
was a
did
nice
this.
set, actually.
Yeah, in the UK, they do this thing where they bring out a magazine after a film, after they've exploited something for all of its worth. They do like a magazine issue of something like a TV series, like Dad's Army or whatnot, and you can buy it with a magazine and a single disc in each pack.
Yeah.
It goes against everything I've just talked about in terms of being ripped off, but the magazine's
Oh,
fair.
I had that with the Animals of Farming Woods on VHS back in the day.
There you go. So yeah, they were quite nice. But yeah, I've definitely got some nice 4Ks and whatnots as well. But yeah, I'd have to walk along the shelf.
So what we've found is Alex's is the Fellini set and the Hitchcock set. The Hitchcock set is really nice one it's got because it's like, you know, like the film reel things in the
Oh, lovely,
packaging.
lovely.
And the Fellini set's lovely. Aaron says he wants the Frankenhooker pictures, but when you press it, it says one a day. Well, hopefully it
Really?
hasn't died.
I've got a Shrek 2 DVD that when you pressed it, it used to play Living La Vida Loca, I think, sung by Donkey.
Yeah.
But of course, it's long since died. You press it now and it doesn't do anything. But yeah, I used to get those back in the day that used to play a piece of music.
Okay, guys, get your comments in now because we're going to be ending in a few minutes. So
Yeah,
if you've got any more comments.
Or any questions?
Just waiting to see if we get any more questions. Gonna give them a few minutes and then we're gonna end the stream. So a few more minutes, guys, to get your last comments in before we go. So
yeah,
is there anything you'd like to talk about for a few minutes before we end?
Just I don't want anyone to take away from this that we are attacking anybody for going the route of doing this. Because I care about the collecting community and as someone who's part of the cinema industry, don't like seeing people be ripped off. I would go back to something that was said earlier, which I keep quoting: curate what you buy and try and think before you buy something whether you think that's worth. I mean, if it's worth the money to you, someone once told me that something's only worth what you're willing to pay for it. If you want to pay, it's your money, you work for it, you do whatever for it. That's exactly it.
Oh.
But what I don't think you want to do is create a precedent for companies to keep charging more and more and more and more.
Thank you, Aaron. That means a lot.
Yeah, thank you, Aaron. I'm new at this. I talk too much and I burble, but you're all being very kind.
Alex said we will receive 8K anytime soon. I personally don't think so. I think 8K, if I'm honest, I think most people won't be able to see 8K anyway.
That's what I'm told.
You know, so there's no real point in it. I think it's more of a kind of hype thing for video gaming as well.
Video gaming, I could see, would benefit greatly from it because it would be an immersive experience.
Thanks for being here, Dave. Said yes.
Thank you so much. It would be an immersive world that you could get in. But yeah, the thing about 8K is that those who I know have tested it have said, you know, the quality's there to see, but the detail reaches a point where the human eye can't detect it. There's definitely masters of things like Jaws in 8K out in the wild, but yeah, and most of the masters now for things like My Fair Lady that we're getting in 4K are what they call them, scale downs from the 8K.
Yeah,
you know,
definitely.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. For downscale, exactly. I mean, you always want to scan something at the highest quality, and future proofing is something I really believe in. If you want to scan My Fair Lady and whatnot in 8K before the materials that they're using to scan those films are fading or things are happening to them. Because something that struck me that was said recently on a video I watched online was we don't know what digital does because it's still too new. We don't know if our files just start erasing themselves in 20, 30 years time.
Oh,
because
dear.
they don't want to work with them. Yeah, it's very unlikely, but yeah, so you want to definitely make sure that you're scanning in things at 8K and trying to do it.
Joel says his Joel is the Three Colour trilogy. That's a beautiful set. I own that set.
It's beautiful. I want that. I'm jealous of you, George. I really want that. It's lovely. I keep picking it up in shops and going, oh, too much. That's another one that I think for free films is probably overpriced. The book in it's lovely, but that is a £60 box set, I think, maybe trapped in a £90 price tag. But yeah, I'll keep on that one. So same for the Wim Wenders sets as well. They're lovely. So yeah,
I think I picked mine up. I think I picked mine up for 63. My three color trilogy. The Wim Wenders set I bought, it was like I think 90.
Oh wow!
So
Beautiful
you know
set.
they're quite expensive.
Yeah.
Both still sealed.
Really? You're on the
Yeah.
buses to see now. I'm surprised you haven't cracked that up. I'd crack that up and just see what the Masters would look like. What are they gonna do
Yeah,
with
I
it?
need to, but it's because I get into these you know, these what do you call it, while watching films at certain times.
I don't think
Decalogue,
there's
that
any.
is a beautiful set as well. That's brilliant.
Lovely, yes. And I think,
Oh, thank you, Aaron. Definitely hit the like button.
oh, that's kind. Thank you, Aaron. I think, yeah, Saka Tango is on the horizon as well because, if I pronounce that right, because they're doing a lot of theatrical showings of that at the moment,
Mm,
re-releases. So you know, Curzon are doing a good job with their catalogue prices. You know, come on, guys, you don't have to charge this
yeah.
for this, you know. But
You know, thing
yeah,
annoys me with curtains, they could easily be as good as Criterion, Indicator, BFI, you know, the releases.
they're buying now as well. They bought Kneecap in the UK.
Yeah,
Their foreign cinema, you know, they've consistently bought Francois Ozon, my favourite, like French filmmaker. They pick up his titles. They're a really good, solid distributor. You know that you've
yeah.
got a good chance of watching a good film if you watch it via Curzon. But yeah, I feel they're
What's the
overcharging.
price tag
Again,
on that?
less sales. So yeah.
Well, I think that's where we're going to end it. Would you like to say your goodbyes?
Just thanks for you, Malcolm. As always, I really enjoyed doing these and meeting everybody. I was very nervous doing them, but yeah, it's nice to be supportive. We're going to take on some of your comments about films and whatnot to
Yeah.
do. Maybe think to reach out to Malcolm and say, is there any other topics you think you'd like us to talk about? So yeah, I heard you were supposed to watch.
We were supposed to watch Kneecap, but I was ill. You should come over. It's on the thing, and we can watch it together.
There you go. They can cuddle up. There's that. We end on a romantic moment. Malcolm is
We
going
do.
to kick physical media out of his bed and welcome Alex in, and they're going to cuddle up with a
Well, we
hot
do cross
chocolate.
stalls regularly, so you know.
Yeah. And that's
Oh,
exactly
tenant
if you know the attitude of Kneecap, that's definitely one to text the band in the film. We're cuddling up together now with a hot chocolate, watching your lovely film. The review they will never ever get on that film.
Ooh, that's tempting.
There you go.
We should. Just come over. We could watch it.
Great soundtrack as well. I really like the band. I worked with that film in pre-release, and the music was. I don't really like much modern music because I'm old and boring. But yeah, I really like Kneecap. They're a really good band, and they kind of go back to that playful spirit of Eminem's songwriting. You know, Eminem when he
Yeah.
started was, and I think he still is, to be fair.
We'll have to do long legs.
Long legs is on my list, Alex. It wasn't before, but I have so many people coming up and telling me about Long Legs, and that is a real, you know, different film. And Cage, you know, everyone likes to sort of talk about Cage like it's this camp, silly thing. But, you know, he constantly does films like Pig, films that are off the beaten track. He's still a really interesting actor in terms of what he takes on. So, yeah, I'm up for Long Legs. That might be a future one for you and me, Malcolm.
Yeah, definitely. I will definitely. I'm going to say this before I go. Thank you, everybody, for the support. Thank you for being very kind to Mark because he's been very nervous the first couple of times. And he does chat on. I know. People are going to say to me, why don't you stop him and interfere more and say things? Well, it's called being polite and letting him get his comment out there because I can say it anytime. So. But no, in all seriousness, I'm glad he's here. I'm glad I'm going to do some of these videos as well. I'm looking for the next one, which we'll figure out to talk about at some point. Well, you know, after probably in that. But yeah, so thanks everybody for being in, and we'll see you next time. So take care for now and have a good week. Bye, guys.